The Economist, from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, http://en.wikipedia.org. The Economist is a weekly news and international affairs publication of The Economist Newspaper Limited, edited in London, the United Kingdom. It has been in continuous publication since September 1843. As of 2006, its average circulation topped 1 million copies a week, about half of which are sold in North America. According to its contents page, its goal is to take part in a severe contest between intelligence, which presses forward, and an unworthy, timid ignorance obstructing our progress. Subjects covered include international news, economics, politics, business, finance, science and technology, and the arts. The publication is targeted at the high-end prestige segment of the market and counts among its audience influential business and government decision-makers. It takes a strongly argued editorial stance on many issues, especially its support for free trade and fiscal conservatism. It thus practices advocacy journalism. The Economist calls itself a newspaper. This reflects its legal status under long-standing company registration laws in its home territory, England. Unlike most newspapers, it is printed in magazine form on glossy paper, like a news magazine. The Economist belongs to the Economist Group. The publication interests of the group include the CFO brand family, as well as the European Voice and Roll Call, known as the newspaper of Capitol Hill. Another part of the group is the Economist Intelligence Unit, a research and advisory company providing country, industry, and management analysis worldwide. Section 1. Features. The Economist's primary focus is world news, politics, and business, but it also runs regular sections on science and technology, as well as books and the arts. Every 2 weeks, the newspaper includes, as an additional section, an in-depth survey of a particular business issue, business sector, or geographical region. Every 3 months, The Economist publishes a quarterly technology survey. Articles often take a definite editorial stance and almost never carry a byline. This means that no specific person or persons can be named as the author. Not even the name of the editor from 2006, John Micklethwaite, is printed in the issue. It is a long-standing tradition that an editor's only signed article during his tenure is written on the occasion of his departure from the position. The author of a piece is named in certain circumstances. For example, when notable persons are invited to contribute opinion pieces, when Economist writers compile surveys, and to highlight a potential conflict of interest of a book review. The names of Economist editors and correspondents can be located, however, via the staff pages of the website. The newspaper has a trademark type writing style that is famous for putting a maximum amount of information into a minimum of column inches. The one feature most articles have in common is the concluding witticism. Some have joked that as long as the writers can deliver that, their political or other opinions do not matter. Since 1995, The Economist has published one obituary every week of a famous or infamous person from any field of endeavor. The Economist is famous for its Big Mac Index, which uses the price of a Big Mac hamburger sold by McDonald's in different countries as an informal measure of purchasing power parity between two currencies. It has turned out to be a whimsical but surprisingly accurate index for comparison. In January 2004, this index was joined by a Starbucks Tall Latte Index. The newspaper is also a co-sponsor of the Copenhagen Consensus. Each of the opinion columns in the newspaper is devoted to a particular area of interest. The names of these columns reflect the topic they concentrate on. Bagehot, the column for Britain, is named for Walter Bagehot, a 19th century British constitutional expert and an earlier editor of The Economist. Charlemagne, the column for Europe, is named for Charlemagne, founder of the Frankish Empire. Lexington, the column for the United States, is named for Lexington, Massachusetts, the site of the beginning of the American War of Independence. Buttonwood, the column for finance, is named for the buttonwood tree where early Wall Street traders gathered. This is an online column. 2 other regular columns are Face Value, which is about prominent people in the business world, and Economic Focus, a general economics column frequently based on academic research. The magazine goes to press on Thursdays, is available online from Thursday evening GMT, and is available on newsstands in many countries the next day. It is printed in 7 sites around the world. The Economist newspaper sponsors yearly innovation awards in the categories of bioscience, computing and communications, energy and the environment, social and economic innovation, business process innovation, consumer products, and a special no boundaries category. The Economist also produces the annual The World in Year publication. Section 2. History. The 5th of August, 1843 prospectus for the newspaper enumerated 13 areas of coverage that its editors wanted the newspaper to focus on. 1. Original leading articles in which free trade principles will be most rigidly applied to all the important questions of the day. 2. Articles relating to some practical, commercial, agricultural, or foreign topic of passing interest, such as foreign treaties. 3. An article on the elementary principles of political economy, applied to practical experience, covering the laws related to prices, wages, rent, exchange, revenue, and taxes. 4. Parliamentary reports with particular focus on commerce, agriculture, and free trade. 5. Reports and accounts of popular movements advocating free trade. 6. General news from the court, the metropolis, the provinces, Scotland and Ireland. 7. Commercial topics such as changes in fiscal regulations, the state and prospects of the markets, imports and exports, foreign news, the state of manufacturing districts, notices of important new mechanical improvements, shipping news, the money market, and the progress of railways and the public companies. 8. Agricultural topics, including the application of geology and chemistry, notices of new and improved implements, state of crops, markets, prices, foreign markets, and prices converted into English money. From time to time, in some detail, the plans pursued in Belgium, Switzerland, and other well-cultivated countries. 9. Colonial and foreign topics, including trade, produce, political and fiscal changes, and other matters, including exposés on the evils of restriction and protection, and the advantages of free intercourse and trade. 10. Law reports, confined chiefly to areas important to commerce, manufacturing, and agriculture. 11. Books, confined chiefly, but not so exclusively, to commerce, manufacturing, and agriculture, and including all treatises on political economy, finance, or taxation. 12. A commercial gazette with prices and statistics of the week. 13. Correspondence and inquiries from the newspaper's readers. In 1845, during railway mania, The Economist changed its name to The Economist, Weekly Commercial Times, Banker's Gazette, and Railway Monitor, a political, literary, and general newspaper. The editors of The Economist have been James Wilson from 1843 to 1857, Richard Hold Hutton from 1857 to 1861, Walter Bagehot 1861 to 1877, Daniel Connor Lathbury 1877 to 1881, R. H. I. Palgrave 1877 to 1883, Edward Johnston 1883 to 1907, F. W. Hurst 1907 to 1916, Hartley Withers 1916 to 1921, Sir Walter T. Layton 1922 to 1938, Geoffrey Crowther 1938 to 1956, Donald Tyman 1956 to 1965, Alastair Burnett 1965 to 1974, Andrew Knight 1974 to 1986, Rupert Pennant Ray 1986 to 1993, Bill Emmett 1993 to 2006, and John Micklethwaite 2006 to present. Section 3. Opinions. See also main article, The Economist editorial stance. When the newspaper was founded, the term economism denoted what would today be termed fiscal conservatism in the United States, or economic liberalism in the rest of the world, and historically the United States as well. The Economist generally supports free markets and opposes socialism. It is in favor of globalization. Economic liberalism is generally associated with the right, but is now favored by some traditionally left-wing parties. It also supports social liberalism, which is often seen as left-wing, especially in the United States. This contrast derives in part from the Economist's roots in classical liberalism, disfavoring government interference in either social or economic activity. According to former editor Bill Emmett, the Economist's philosophy has always been liberal, not conservative. This is meant in the non-modern American senses of both those terms. In modern American terms, its stance is called libertarianism. However, the views taken by individual contributors are quite diverse. The Economist has endorsed both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in recent British elections, and both Republican and Democratic candidates in the United States. A history of The Economist by the editors of Economist.com puts it this way. What besides free trade and free markets does The Economist believe in? It is to the radicals that The Economist still likes to think of itself as belonging. The extreme centre is the paper's historical position. This is true today as when former Economist editor Jeffrey Crowther said it in 1955. The Economist considers itself the enemy of privilege, pomposity, and predictability. It has backed conservatives such as Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. It has supported the Americans in Vietnam, but it has also endorsed Harold Wilson and Bill Clinton, and espoused a variety of liberal causes, opposing capital punishment from its earliest days, while favouring penal reform and decolonization, as well as, more recently, gun control and gay marriage. The Economist has frequently criticized figures and countries deemed corrupt or dishonest. For example, it gave editorial support for the impeachment of Bill Clinton. In recent years, for example, it has been critical of Silvio Berlusconi, Italy's former prime minister, who dubbed it the Communist, Laurent Kabila, the late president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Robert Mugabe, the head of government in Zimbabwe. The Economist also called for Donald Rumsfeld's resignation after the emergence of the Abu Ghraib torture and prisoner abuse. Although the Economist supported George W. Bush's election campaign in 2000 and vocally supported the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, the editors backed John Kerry in the 2004 election, and the editorial tone has since become increasingly critical of the Bush administration due to its general disagreement with the paper's classical liberalism. Section 4. Tone and Voice. The Economist does not print bylines identifying the authors of articles. In their own words, it is written anonymously because it is a paper whose collective voice and personality matter more than the identities of individual journalists. The editorial staff enforces a strictly uniform voice throughout the magazine. As a result, most articles read as though they were written by a single author, displaying dry, understated wit and precise use of language. It does not explain terms like invisible hand, macroeconomics, or demand curve, and may take just 6 or 7 words to explain the theory of comparative advantage. The newspaper usually does not translate short French quotes or phrases, and sentences in ancient Greek or Latin are not uncommon, although these are translated. It strives to be well-rounded, as well as financial and economic issues. It reports on science, culture, language, literature, and art, and is careful to hire writers and editors who are well-versed in these subjects. The publication is not without a sense of whimsy. Most articles conclude with a witticism. Some have joked that as long as the writers can deliver that, their opinions do not matter. Image captions are almost always humorous. The letters section usually includes with an odd or light-hearted letter. One notable example simply asked, "What is the Idiot's Corner and how can I get published there?" Section 5. Business. Circulation for the newspaper, audited by the Audit Bureau of Circulations, was 1,038,552 for the first half of 2005. Sales inside North America were 51% of the total, with sales in the UK making up 15% of the total, and continental Europe 20%. The Economist claims sales, both by subscription and on newsstands, in over 201 countries. The newspaper consciously adopts an internationalist approach and notes that over 80% of its readership is from outside the UK, its country of publication. The Economist Newspaper Limited is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Economist Group. One half of the Economist Group is owned by private shareholders, including members of the Rothschild banking family of England, and the other half by the Financial Times, a subsidiary of the Pearson Group. The editorial independence of The Economist is strictly upheld. An independent trust board, which has power to block any changes of the editor, exists to ensure this. Section 6. Letters. The Economist frequently receives letters from senior business people, politicians, and spokespeople for government departments, non-governmental organizations, and pressure groups. While well-written or witty responses from anyone will be considered, controversial issues will frequently produce a torrent of letters. For example, the Survey of Corporate Social Responsibility, published in January 2005, produced largely critical letters from Oxfam, the UN World Food Programme, the UN Global Compact, the chairman of BT, an ex-director of Shell, and the UK Institute of Directors. Section 7. Censorship of The Economist. Sections of The Economist criticizing authoritarian regimes, such as China, are frequently removed from the newspaper by the authorities in those countries. Despite having its Asia-Pacific office there, The Economist regularly has difficulties with the Li dynasty in Singapore, having been sued successfully by them for libel on a number of occasions. Nelson Mandela stated that he used to receive The Economist while imprisoned in South Africa, until the authorities there realized that it was not restricted to covering economic issues, and was taking a very strong line against the apartheid regime. The government of Saudi Arabia, among others, censors the magazine, which often appears on newsstands with missing pages. Some issues, such as one covering King Fahd's death in 2005, were banned from the kingdom. Robert Mugabe's government in Zimbabwe went further and imprisoned The Economist's correspondent there, charging him with violating an infamous statute against publishing untruth, although he was later acquitted, only to receive a deportation order. On June 15, 2006, Iran banned the sale of The Economist due to a map incorrectly labeling the Persian Gulf as the Gulf. Iran's action can be put into context within the larger issue of the Persian Gulf naming dispute. Section 8. Further reading. The Pursuit of Reason, The Economist, 1843 to 1993, by Ruth Dudley Edwards, published in London by Hamish Hamilton in 1993. See also The Spectator and New Statesman. This sound file and all text in the article are licensed under the GNU Free Documentation License, available at www.gnu.org/copyleft/fdl.html.